Starting seeds indoors is a great way to get a head start on your growing season. And being able to mix your own soil for your seed starts can not only save you money versus buying pre-mixed soil, but you control what goes into it. And it's easier than you may think once you understand what's going on with the seeds and the soil. Now, before we continue, I understand that plants can and will grow in less than accommodating environments. I've actually had volunteers that have grown up through the hard, rocky ground that is my backyard. I actually have a cherry tomato plant that is a volunteer right now that we didn't plant. We don't even really water it. It's just excess from whatever comes off the bag here. So what we are discussing is creating a soil mixture that is more inviting and more suitable for seed starting. So let's get into it. So in order to germinate, seeds only actually need a few things: proper temperature, proper water, oxygen, and proper light. Sometimes lack of. Notice soil isn't even mentioned in that, or even nutrients for that matter. A little more on that a little later. As it turns out, a seed actually has everything it needs to germinate, sprout, and become a seedling, all packed within itself. So what is the point of the soil mix then? Well, to be honest, it's just providing it a space in which it can germinate and do its thing. So let's go ahead and break down what I generally use in the seed starting mix, and you'll see just how simple it really is. First thing is going to be peat moss or coconut coir. Now, before we continue, I would like to address that there is a conversation on which is better and more sustainable, less environmental impact. And what I would say to that is either use whatever is comfortable for you or affordable, available, or whatever you'd like. And then we've got perlite, we've got some worm castings, and if needed, some garden lime. So let's start with the peat moss. The whole point of the peat moss or coconut coir, depending on what it is that you're using, is to provide it material that is airy and non-compacted. What this will allow the roots to do is to actually be able to spread and do its thing without being restricted or obstructed, I should say. And this is going to make up the bulk of the mix. So let's go ahead and pop this open right now, because I do need to get some stuff mixed up here. But as you can see, this is pretty light and fluffy. And I like to kind of break it up, go through, make sure there's no like sticks, because every once in a while you'll come across sticks and stuff that are in through here. You can also screen this out if you have something to do some screening to make sure you got no big chunks in here. But again, this is going to be the bulk of your mixture. Now next is going to be your perlite. Now perlite, I'm pretty sure if you've ever seen a seed starting mixture before, you've probably seen this. And what it is, when you look at a starting mix or even a potting mix for that matter, there's a stuff that looks and feels kind of like styrofoam. Okay, trust me, it's not styrofoam. Breaks up pretty easily. Now what this does is allow for additional space to be created in your soil mixture, and allows for drainage so the water can pass through your soil. And for a starting mix, I use a pretty good amount, maybe even almost like a 1-to-1 kind of ratio. So like here, I'm putting a decent amount through, and I just start kind of mixing it in. And if I feel I need more, I'll add more. And that's the thing with creating soil mixtures for your plants. Some plants need different specifications than others, and then it comes down to experience, personal preference. But so far, we have 2 ingredients: perlite, peat moss, or coconut coir. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more. We want a good amount in here. Now, it's hard to mention perlite without another ingredient that I don't generally use. I have used, and it's not that it's not a good thing to use. I just generally don't, and that's vermiculite. Now, vermiculite is very similar to perlite in the sense that it is also a volcanic material that, like perlite is. However, where it differs is perlite allows for drainage. Vermiculite actually holds on to water and nutrients. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you can overdo it on vermiculite. So if you're going to use vermiculite in your mixture, I would say keep it to around a 10 to 15% of your mixture. Again, you can overdo it. All right, that looks pretty good here. Now, the next thing is worm castings. Now, earlier I mentioned that nutrients were not mentioned in the requirements for germination, and that is true. I personally, however, like using a little bit of worm casting in my mixture. The reason being is worm castings, it's very difficult to burn your plants or your seedlings. And what that means is over fertilize, provided with too much nutrients. Now, worm castings such as this one here is actually a pretty low combination. You'll see these numbers here like a 1.2500. Now, I'll get more into fertilization at a later time and go over what these numbers are, but just know that this is what is considered a more neutral or balanced fertilizer. And again, it doesn't really take much. One of the benefits and why I do this is, one, I just seem to have had more success doing it this way. And if you get delayed on transplanting or uppotting, this adds just a little bit of extra nutrients to your soil to allow those seedlings to go a little bit longer than they probably should. And worm castings are just that right there. It's basically worm poop. So the question is how much to add? Well, again, it takes some experimentation. Me personally, I would say I'm about a cup per gallon. So I'm just going, I've already kind of put a couple handfuls in here. So I'm going to say that's probably about a cup. You can probably go up to 2. I wouldn't go much beyond that. Now, I'm not actually going to be using this for seeds. I'm going to be using this for some tomato cloning, but that'll be in a later video. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you're notified when that video comes out. So if I were using coconut coir, for the most part, I would be done. Because I'm using peat moss, this is where garden lime comes into play. Now, peat moss is a little acidic, and for the most part, plant seeds and getting them to germinate like a pretty neutrally balanced soil. So how much should you add? Well, that really depends on the acidity of this mixture. I generally, for a mixture this size, would probably only add like 1 or 2 tablespoons of lime. If you wanted to get more specific, you could order a testing kit. They're pretty easy to use. They sell them on Amazon. I'll actually leave a link in the description below for that. And you can test your pH balance, and you can do a quick search to see where your seeds that you're trying to germinate need to be. The research on that's pretty simple, quick to do. As a matter of fact, I will leave a couple of links to some articles that further explain that. Again, if you're using coconut coir, that is not necessary. And the last bit is to make sure to add a little bit of water before you put these into your seed starting trays here. You want to make sure you have your soil mixture hydrated, because again, remember, one of the key things is proper temperature, proper light, and proper water. And that'll do it for us. Thank you for hanging out with me this morning, getting some seed starting trays ready. Like I said, I'm actually going to be using these to clone tomatoes. So if you're interested in what goes into that, make sure to, again, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. That way you're notified when I upload that video. Otherwise, thank you, and we'll see you on the next one.